going on, guys? It's fun. Welcome back to your favorite podcast with your Chuckle King, Dan, here once again to fill your beautiful ear holes and your eye holes if you're on YouTube watching with nothing but joy and my chaos. With me, as always, I have the Chuckle Wizard, Nathan. Welcome, Nathan.
Oh, hello, Daniel. I wanted to see if you could tell if there's anything different about what's behind me. Does anything look different to you?
Oh, okay. Is this a game? I didn't know that we were going to play a game.
Does anything look a little different?
No, the leaf's still there.
The leaf's still there?
Abe Sapien's still there. I always check to see if Abe Sapien's still there.
Where is he?
The
behind my back.
The books. I read the books.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Titles of the books. I can't wait. We have to do a whole episode on the new Hellboy movie that looks like hot garbage. I cannot wait to watch it. No, I miss. What am I missing?
Well, Dan, I have achieved my goal. You see, this is a immersive experience that looks like my room, but it's not actually. I'm actually in Taiwan. I've created this entire immersive experience that looks exactly like my room. It's very popular.
Wow, I see. So it's like a space that looks like your room.
Yeah.
But it's in a completely different locale.
Correct.
It's like this strange thing that you stumbled upon.
Well,
hey, dude,
I designed it, and I designed it because I was so excited about our guest today.
Oh, okay. You mentioned the guest first. Dang, I was going to try to mention him first.
I'm sorry.
Because I was going to try to play in a bit, be like, I got someone that you need to talk to if you're into weird rooms that look like specific places.
Well, who do you think
places
helped
they don't
me?
belong.
Who do you think helped me do all this? Come on, I need concept art for this.
Okay,
it went through several committees. Yeah.
It's so interesting because Justin Martin feels to me, who's our guest today, feels to me like
that's the weirdest intro. Could you say his name so he can say hello?
Wait. It's part of it.
Okay, continue then.
Justin Martin, our guest today, feels to me like a weird milestone in like theme parks, like as a creator, because I started creating and making content online, and everyone and their brother talks about like Meow Wolf, you know what I mean? Like as the answer to like adult Disney like themed stuff outside the world, and not only that, this guy's also on Blue Loop top 50 theme park influencers. And so the moment that Justin Martin followed me on social media, I felt truly blessed. You know what I mean? Like I felt blessed by like the Maiar in Lord of the Rings, like Gandalf
Nerd.
himself like touched me, you know, with his staff. So I say all that to say that Justin holds a special place in my heart, and I'm so grateful to have him here because people think I'm a Disney adult, but I'm not. I'm a themed, immersive entertainment adult. I have for you the GOAT to talk about it. Justin, what's going on, man?
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Dan. I'm so excited. No, I too am obviously a Disney adult, but at the same time, find myself more of a themed entertainment adult. So it's as a big fan of all the stuff y'all have been doing, making content on like every platform possible. I was super excited to not only follow you, but eventually like start talking to y'all and do this whole thing. So thank you so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah. It's so you like are an interesting specimen when it comes to themed entertainment in this world, and that's what I mean by that is you have worked on things that aren't like tight butthole about like their details, you know,
Sure.
like Meow Wolf, for example, like is something that you can actually explore and talk about as a themed immersive piece. It's also an art piece, which is what theme parks are. They're just these immersive art pieces that incredible artists made for you, but are not credited anywhere except for a few windows on Main Street, you know, and so it's cool to be able to talk to you about like how the secret world of themed entertainment. So welcome, man.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I agree. It's, I will definitely agree that theme parks are art, and we don't do a good enough job crediting everybody that works on the big stuff. But yeah, it's exciting. It's a
so
fun world.
I want to start with a big swing. I want to start with a big swing.
Do it.
I need to know from you what you think the state of themed immersive entertainment is right now. Like, what is the state of immersive entertainment right now, Justin?
You know, it is on. Ooh, that's a great question. I find that I want to be positive about it because I think it's on the upswing, and it's kind of been trying to we've been trying to get our legs under us again post pandemic. Like after pandemic wiped out not only a lot of people's jobs within themed entertainment, and we found a lot of really great talented people leave the industry entirely because it's a small industry, so there's not a ton of places that can staff up. So they kind of spread to the four winds basically. But now I feel like companies are starting to invest some more money into things. Projects are kind of starting to roll a little bit more. Obviously we got the big things like Epic Universe and Meow Wolf is still building stuff everywhere. And there's smaller, companies doing other stuff. So I think we're in a good place, but I think we still have some hills to get over, fully out of the pandemic. But I think we're in a good spot. I think we're doing better.
You think that it's on the rise again?
I think
it's
so.
coming back like a phoenix.
Yes,
it was in its little weird bird looking phase, like when it's a baby, and everyone's like, ugh, ugh. When you see a little bird, you're like, oh, it's not like a kitten. When you see a young bird, you're like, ugh,
Yeah, it was rough for a minute. It was rough.
Yeah, it was. But now it's coming back. It's coming back. It's circling around.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is because there are so many bad themed entertainment offerings that have made it become viral of late.
Sure. Yeah.
As the themed lord, what is the threshold that one must cross to be an amusement into a themed immersive experience? Like, what is? Can you explain to me as a layman? Like when I see because I'm going to be honest, guys. I know we all made fun of the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory thing in the UK, but if I was 4, I wouldn't have been upset. I would have been like, oh, look at cool things I get to touch. Like, here's a big lollipop. Whoa, I've never seen one so big. It's adults that and obviously it was awful. But as a child, I bet if you would have surveyed the children, it would have polled well. That's all I'm saying.
Dan, children are very dumb.
Right, well, so are a lot of people.
Yeah.
So what is that threshold, Justin, that makes things good immersive entertainment and not just like a sideshow attraction?
Yeah. I think the key word there is good, because I think the most basic answer is themed entertainment versus amusement entertainment is Six Flags versus Disneyland kind of thing, where it's you go in park term, I guess. So we'll get, if anything that starts to have a theme, bluntly. So we're taking stuff from just a steel roller coaster and starting to give it a story, give it some scenic design, some audio lighting cues, things like that. So when we start getting into that phase, I think, that's where it starts to become, it goes from the amusement side of things to actual themed entertainment. And then, I think it's tough because things like the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I just saw there was a Bridgerton one that just happened the other day that looked insane. And so I think there's smaller projects like that are trying at times with good intentions, and then sometimes it's just a money grab. But I think as long as we're transporting our guests from something that is the everyday world into something that's unlike what is what we're used to, and creating some kind of theme to transport them is kind of how I start to define where we're taking you from the amusement side to a themed entertainment side of an experience.
Gotcha. So I'm crossing the threshold and I am not where I was anymore is just the definition. You think if that's executed in a way that I forget for a moment that I'm in Pennsylvania at Dorney Park and not actually in the spooky haunted house or whatever, it's successful. And that's the line is a story that transports you.
Yeah, exactly. Like going to Sleep No More in New York City, you leave, the streets of, of Chelsea and Manhattan or whatever, and now you're inside of a warehouse where it's themed to 1930s, 40s, Gatsby-esque style murder mystery, and it's like, okay, now I know I'm in New York, but the minute I walk through there, I'm totally immersed in whatever that story is, and it goes for anything else. So it doesn't really ever matter what the location is. I feel, as long as you're crossing some kind of threshold to get into an experience that I can fully kind of turn my brain off a little bit and get enveloped in it all, I think that's really the starting point.
Justin, do you count? Oh, I'm sorry, Dan. But Justin, do you count like computer? I'm in the middle of playing Myst 4 once again, and find myself losing hours. And I feel pretty dang immersed, even though there's a screen separating me. It's not VR. It's not even that kind of hardcore. Is there a medium difference as well for you, or do you see it as sort of like anything that just sort of immerses you in story?
That's a really good question, because I go back and forth. I have like the was it the Meta Quest headset or whatever, and play around on that. And basically, I use it to play like VR mini golf, which is great. But
welcome to the future, kids. It's exactly like the grandma in the last scene of Carousel of. I mean, it's exactly you are the grandma in the last scene of Carousel of Progress, Justin.
Yeah, I struggle. I think for me, I'm like very hell-bent on like getting away from a lot of the screen stuff. So not that I don't think that's immersive or themed entertainment on its own, but I do think it's almost its own subcategory that, like, for me at least, when I put a headset on, I'm going like, I'm just playing a video game. And I know that like I'm still sitting on my couch or I'm in my, office doing something, versus when I go out to experience something, that's when I go like, okay, this is some kind of themed entertainment thing.
Tangible.
There might be components. Yeah, exactly. There might be components that I take away from the video game or VR thing, but
now, Justin, they have these. They're like sensies for nerds that like they're you put in like 10 cartridges and you hook it up to your game, and like based off of audio cues, it'll like put off some gun smoke smell, or it'll put out like rain smell, or it'll put out like, forest smell, which like, so I think that I completely agree with you. And I like that you doubled down on the grandma. You're like, these kids and their screens. But I think that like in a way that Blade Runner truly is the future, we are on our way to a sort of bleak digital life that everything is sort of like the joy is only found on the other side of something immersive, like like a digital threshold, which sounds so sad. But truly, so much more accessible than these, pop-up like Nathan, like, Alien. We've been talking a lot about Alien Isolation is another one of those like true. It's like a theme park ride, like a true theme park experience. That game where you feel so like deep, like you're in the Nostromo, like on the Great Movie Ride. So
now that I even think about that, I used my bad example of my VR mini golf, but like I have played a few VR games even where there's a Star Wars one that's pretty incredible, and you take it off and you put it on and you're like, okay, now I actually feel like I'm walking around on these ships. So maybe I back out a little bit and go like, I think we might be getting there. I think there's still just a little bit of a I was gonna say there's a barrier to entry, but it's expensive to go to a theme park. So all of this stuff really is
huge barriers of entry.
So it's everything. A little tough,
everything does. Is themed immersion for people with money? Is you know what I mean? Like, is that like what are we like? It's so interesting that like that you have to. There is a price. It's so there's a huge price for it all to escape. Escapism costs money, I guess, is just the escapism is a privilege, and we're all anyone who's able to enjoy escapism is lucky.
And I actually on the side I teach a themed entertainment like online course, and one of my classes I talk a little bit about that of like themed entertainment is really awesome when you can go to the parks, but like how can we bring that into our real world? Like I'm by no means an urban planner, but I talk about like third places, which is you've got your home, you've got work, and then what that is that other thing, and like trying to find like why are airports boring, why are train stations boring, why are all these other places that we live in our day-to-day, like everybody goes to Target, boring, everybody goes to like a McDonald's, boring, all these places have been like stripped down of anything interesting or cool, just to be this very like standard kind of like sterile looking places.
Oh,
how
for
can we
sure.
like take the themed entertainment stuff and then actually use those practices? And maybe we're not building a Western town or something, but we can make things cool that like engage an audience in a different way.
Oh yeah, that new terminal at Orlando that they just built at MCO
great
is
example.
very much an example where that's swinging in the direction you want it to go, with those huge like walls you can control by walking in front of and around and whatnot. So fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked a lot about it. You're the one to talk to about it. My last question before I go into my list of like interesting things you did that I want to talk to you about is like, where do you stand on as your own personal and I'm not trying to no pointing fingers or anything like that. Where do you stand on like, what is your thoughts on the best version of the theme park experience for the immersion that has been done? Is it like Walt's old Fantasyland where it's like just a mashup of like you enter your fantasy? Is it more the Harry Potter where you're like living the movie story, or is it the Star Wars where you live your own story? Like there are all these different sort of techniques and approaches to immersion. Where is your where do you personally put your stake in the ground? Like what do you think is the best way to deliver?
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's a great question. And not to like throw it in a different direction, but I think it depends on the stories we're telling. So like, I think Star Wars deserves,
it just gave me the shivers.
Star Wars deserves an experience that like is a full land that has multiple attractions where you like, people want to go live your Star Wars adventure. You want to be the Luke Skywalker of your Star Wars story. So that made sense to build something like that. Pandora, I think we were all like, and then we got there and we're like, wow, this place is beautiful. But I think
the concept was lost on us until we were immersed. You know what I mean? It's like, I want to see that like I want to see the floating rocks like a museum, but you get in there, you're like, holy smokes!
Exactly. And I think so. And we've got. I'm still using the Disney examples, but we've got with Tropical America's Land coming, where that's kind of a little bit closer to that older theme park style land, where it's like the central theme is Tropical Americas, and we've got intellectual properties that kind of relate to that.
Here's an amuse-bouche of Tropical Americas. Yes.
So I think it comes down to like, not every intellectual property deserves a big land kind of thing. Like I think I'm fascinated to watch something like Epic Universe come together, where we're getting a full land based on How to Train Your Dragon and Dark Universe. Well, I think they're going to be great lands. I think it'll be fascinating of where does that trend continue to go? Do we keep building these like one-off IP lands, or do we make these, kind of groupings of a bunch of stories into one? But I stand probably in the place of like, it comes down to what is the IP if we're using one, or what's the story that we're trying to tell? What deserves it?
That's such an intelligent answer, because I'm just sitting here like an idiot being like, well, Disney had to do something different than Universal. Clearly, that's why they made these choices. But you're like, no. The story dictated that you needed to walk through it differently than Harry Potter. It wasn't just a choice to do something different. They actually made a choice to like tell the story of the story. It's like, well, that makes sense. It isn't just some corporate war. It is, in fact, storytelling.
Dan, there is corporate war as well.
Sure. Sure. But I like that. Yes, I'm sitting on the call with like two professors here now, and so just to say that is such a professor answer is all I'm trying to say. Is that it's an enlightening answer. It's an answer that makes you think. It's an answer that shines its light back on you.
Well, and I think too, while not a corporate war yes, to Nathan's point, but I think also there's that other level of like the behind the scenes side of things of like WDI probably did not come in and be like, let's make Tropical Americas. There was probably like a mandate coming from top down that was like, you got to find a way to get Encanto in there. You got to find a way to get Indiana Jones, figure it out. And then there's that middle ground that happens in the design process, but good designers find a way to tell that story in the best way possible.
Sure. Okay. Thank you for enlightening me.
No problem.
Thank you for taking me to a higher place. I have to ask, you were a Walt Disney World cast member.
Yeah.
Can I ask where you made magic first?
Yes, of course. It's crazy. It was like I was there over almost 15 years ago, which is crazy. I was on the Disney College program. I worked at the now defunct Splash Mountain. I was an attractions cast member there. which is funny. When I worked there, I was like, I remember I got my location and I was like so excited. Obviously loved Splash Mountain as an attraction at the time, blah, blah, blah. We all know the garbage around it. But I remember being at the time ignorant to all of it. I was like, well, this is a classic. At least I'll be able to ride this thing forever. Like they'll never get rid of this.
A classic from 1994
yeah,
or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, great, I'll always be able to go and like come back to this thing as like, this is the ride I worked at. And then like, educated myself a bit on the like, the story that it's around. I was like, oh, this is rough. And then when it, came time for it to change, great. But yes, I worked at Splash Mountain for about 5 or so months of my Disney College program term. It was lovely. I always felt that if I was going to design theme park rides, I should probably learn how like they run. And that was really my main reason for doing the Disney College program, was not only being a Disney fan. Yeah, it was to like figure out how this stuff is there. So cool. I could check off a box of I got to work at Disney World. Awesome. But second, like now I know, when you design a ride, like what's back of house look like? How big is a break room? Where's the like, where do you pull the boats off of to, do maintenance and all that stuff? Was very informative, really.
When you're a college program kid, is it very common to hear when people ask, what are you going to college for someone to answer like you, this, like I'm going to college for theme parks? Or were you a minority in being a theme park major and everyone was there just to... Well, essentially, everyone got tricked. Everyone got tricked to be in the college program. Everyone got lied to.
Truthfully, yeah, they all signed up for that slave labor.
I'm definitely going to clip this and just put it on my social media. Let me know in the comments how you were tricked into going onto the college program. I want to know. Justin will be in the comments. He's going to come and check in. He'll be your comfort counselor. He will check in on you to make sure you're still doing okay.
Dan, can you really put a price on experience, though?
Experience.
It's so bad. It's true, though. It's smile because it's true.
Man.
No, yeah.
Memories that'll last you a lifetime, though.
Exactly. That is true. It is true. I look fondly back on all of the madness and craziness that happens on the Disney College program. But I went down... really being the outcast of like, oh, I'm the guy that wants to like design this stuff, and like people
nerd
were like,
alert.
Yeah, so it was like everybody's already a nerd going down there, but then like I add that little sprinkle on top, and people are like, this guy's screwed in the head. No,
right.
like, so
He's
yeah,
unwell.
yeah, exactly. So I was a lot of people that were all very like-minded and being fascinated about the stuff, or they knew Imagineering and theme park design, but that still to them was like, yeah, okay, like that's not a attainable thing, or that's not a career I'm looking to go down. A lot of people were like, I'm in finance and I just want to take a break from school for a little bit. So I went and worked down at Disney World. And so, yeah, I definitely was on the outskirts of those kinds of things. But I think now, as more themed entertainment programs in schools have gotten bigger, I usually when I talk to students or anything, I recommend to like, if you have the chance to go do it, because I think it's valuable. But I think if you probably surveyed people now, more people are going on the college program, maybe with a little bit more of an intent to eventually work in themed entertainment in some capacity.
It's so interesting asking somebody with Stockholm syndrome after their trauma, should I go do it? And they're like, you're shaking. I think you should. I came away okay.
Like, look at me, I'm fine. I'm totally normal. No,
You're
so
part of
true.
the problem, Justin. You're part of the problem.
I am. I know. And I need Disney to start cashing me some checks here if I'm going to send people their direction for the college program.
Right. Well, use my coupon code for when you sign up for your college program to get 15% off your pay.
Yeah, and better.
I'll take it. So you graduated and then you went right into like an internship with Universal. Is that how it worked?
Just the year before graduation, so it was going into my senior year. And
Wow,
and got
you're an
internship.
overachiever.
I know. Funny, I was weirdly behind the 8 ball for some people that I was graduating
really?
with. Yeah, a lot of people had like an internship going into sophomore year. I was like, where the heck are you guys getting all these things? And power to them.
So what specifically on Volcano Bay, because it's on your thing, what specifically are you responsible for in your internship?
Yeah, so nothing. I wrote. That's such. Please clip that.
We got him, Dan. Yes, career ruined. Yes.
No, well, I only say that
Thanks
because,
for
like, I
talking.
know people
Yeah.
who are like, you know, like my buddy's an artist for Warner Brothers, and
Yeah.
every once in a while I get a text from him being like, "Oh, they put my arrow on a thing." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like, oh, okay. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So,
No,
like, did
that's-
you have a moment of pride as your intern in Volcano Bay?
Not entirely. It's kind of, there's a few little things that I look at that I go like, okay, maybe.
Oh, I helped,
and
I helped.
Exactly. And so, like, I came down on to Universal for that project, and it was like a team of 10 people at the time. It was like, we're going to build a water park, and that's where it started. And it was a very small little group, and I kind of was like, they had no idea what to do with me, so they were like, just go sit there and draw stuff. So I spent like 3 months just doodling out, like, they were like, draw benches, water fountains, like lifeguard stands, things like that. And it was just like, you know, we'd have our art director that would do like some bigger design stuff, and they'd be like, try to match this style and make a, you know, locker area that looks kind of like this. So a lot of the stuff, because it was such early blue sky, that's my like nothing kind of thing. It's like we were still informing what the design was, and then by the time my internship was over, they were going to get ready to off and run to, you know, whatever they were going to take it on to be next, basically. Yeah.
Oh wow, okay. So
Yeah.
you see like the influences, you see like the whispers. You're like
Yeah.
Sauron, and Volcano
yes.
Bay is your ring.
Yeah.
And your
I gotta climb
whispers
the
are throughout
volcano.
it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, it was an informative time to like learn how the industry works, but less of. I'm proud to have been able to be a part of it, but there's not really any too like specific, you know, design stuff that I'll take claim for on it.
Justin, this does bring a good point, though, which is I think when you talk to college kids or that age group that's interested in this field, there is sometimes this ignorance that like, oh yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to design the next ride, and that's what I'm going to do.
No,
but also like
you'll design bathroom stalls for 7 months.
Exactly.
yeah. But also, and those won't be the ones they choose. But
No.
but it's still like it's all good. It's all in the pot. It's all part of that stirring things until you figure it out. But did you find that frustrating, or were you that kind of like, and now I get to do stuff, or did you kind of go like, I get it, I know this is my position?
Yeah, I when I came in, I was just excited to be working on anything, really.
Sure.
I was stoked to be in the room. It was the summer that like Diagon Alley was opening at Universal Orlando, so I was like
Good
stoked
place
to
to
do
be.
all of that. Yeah, it was like it was like the place was buzzing all the time out of excitement. So it was like,
And you're a Universal team member, and Diagon Alley opens on the summer you're there. Are you? Do you go? Like, do you? Or you have to buy a ticket? Do they block you out?
no, we
to
were
get
able to
into
go, and then technically, like my best thing in the world was like being an intern at Universal Creative. They had a Universal Creative like pre-party, so we had the whole land to ourselves like 2 days before it opened.
Cool.
For like an evening party thing.
Neat.
So I was like, cool, I got to do the whole thing. I'm out, and because that summer was nuts there. But yeah, no, I found that, you know, just being excited to be in there was enough. And then because I left being a little bit the same way, because I agree, Nathan, like people leave school and they're like, I'm going to be a creative director. I'm going to be the next like Joe Rohde right off the bat. And it's like, no, there's so much stuff that you've got to learn. Like
A lot of earrings to put in first.
It's so many. I'm still trying to collect them. And, you know, and I was even the same way coming out. Like I was like, all right, I got my internship. I got my degree. Like, let me run the show. And it was like, you know, even to this day, I'm still like, why am I in charge with some of this stuff? Because I'm still figuring all of these things out as we go. But yeah, so I in that time, it was, you know, a little bit of just the process of like, let me just soak this all in, learn how the, you know, industry works, kind of just follow, you know, people that are, you know, mentoring me through my internship. How do they go about their day? And then try to just mimic that and then take that into, you know, post-graduation career stuff.
Speaking of being the next Joe Rohde, Justin, have you decided what part of your body you plan to mutilate long term so that you are easily identifiable by the public?
We're still working on it. We're still working.
Yeah,
Right now,
you thought
I got
about
the
many
glasses, and
nose
that's
rings?
it.
Yeah,
No,
the glasses
no.
could get bigger.
They could get bigger.
Yeah, they could get bigger.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Harry
Yeah.
Carey. They could. you could like. You could always have like orange hair or something. You just
Yeah.
have to. I'm just saying, commit to something now.
I gotta find something.
Invest now. You know,
Yeah.
wear those LeVar Burton like Star Trek glasses. You know,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
get
yeah.
those visors. He's the themed immersive guy who looks like
I don't think he looks like LeVar
LeVar
Burton.
Burton in Star Trek. Oh, speaking of aliens in space,
Yeah.
you did the Men in Black Coke refresh station in your internship as well?
That one was, just post-grad or internship. Funny. This one's a weird, like, tiny little thing. One of my friends was working, he was oh gosh, I can't remember the department. Sorry, Matthew. He was like their technical
Justin got
innovation
neuralized.
department.
He's working near the Men in Black, and now he can't remember anything.
I can't remember. It was a couple day little like bring in with a part of the team to kind of just talk about how we could play with adding some stuff to a Coca-Cola stand, and their tech team was trying to find some interesting ways to do some stuff, and so I came on a few calls to chat with them about that one.
If I had a nickel for every time I had to wait like 15 minutes because all of the Coke freestyle machines in that building are filled with like Swedish tourists who have never had as many options to flavor and sample and drink. It's like the Club Cool at Epcot, but like they paid $19.95 for an unlimited amount of whatever they want. And so and they're all just looking at each other, drinking different colored like elixirs. It's wild in there.
Well,
man.
it's nuts.
Real wild.
Well, Dan, you see, Sweden is one of the happiest countries in the world, but also one of the thirstiest.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And not a different, not the thirsty in that sense, but in the traditional sense. It's
they're Swedish. They're not thirsty at all. They're very beautiful people.
Yeah. They're not thirsty. No, we're thirsty for them.
Yes.
They're great thirst. They're like the elves of the earth. So, perfect. Okay. So, you really it was just like a wink and a nip, and you really didn't even think about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
But
exactly.
Dan, speaking of aliens in space.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of aliens in space, and I don't know what you can talk about or can't talk about, but
Sure,
you tweeted
sure,
about it, so I'm going to ask you about it. Because I just did a video on the history of alien xenomorphs in theme parks.
Yeah.
And one of the things that fascinated me was Eisner's hyperfixation with it when he like arrived on the scene in '84. And he's like, we're doing Alien. You know what I mean? Like, it's getting in here. And his initial attempt was to do like a Men in Black, Buzz Lightyear, Astro Blaster, sort of like laser gun with like face huggers and goo, sort of ride. And you ultimately shared with us the world a canceled alien attraction that was, in fact, Eisner's shoot 'em up laser ride. So can you talk to me about this for a second? Because I am obsessed.
Yeah, no, this was this park is long dead, and it'll never happen in any capacity. R.I.P. Fox World Dubai. Yeah, so when I left school, got a job with a company that also doesn't exist anymore, but they had the rights to work on a theme park for Fox pre-Disney acquisition in Dubai. And so we were developing a park that had a bunch of very interesting intellectual properties, but one of them, being Alien. And so Alien, that ride, I don't remember all the beats, actually. And there were a few things on there that I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't even remember seeing some of these things. But that ride was, if you took like, it was not even actually a shooter ride. It was more of a Spider-Man like kind of, I can't remember the name of that.
I'm so bad at these. The whipping, like the Lego Land Ninjago rides are the same way.
Yeah.
You got to do karate chops to like make attacks happen.
Exactly.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. Why did I pay to do this?
Whenever the ride system is for Spider-Man, Transformers, that was basically, I think, the ride system, if I remember correctly.
I see.
For
like
this
a motion simulator thing. Gotcha.
Yeah, motion simulator thing. And I remember the whole shtick was, which I thought was the coolest concept, was you entered the ride vehicle from the back, like it docked into the load platform, and then you'd enter the back, and then I think it sat 6 people. And the whole like gimmick of it was that you sat in like a solo seat in this ride vehicle that you were kind of out of reach from everybody near you. So you had like this alien encounter, terrifying feeling of like a xenomorph is coming after you. We were able to like, hit you with air cannons and make you feel like you're completely isolated in, the deep mines of the alien planet.
Moria.
And Moria, thank you. I'm actually rewatching all the films right now. So
Rings of Power, man. It got me rehooked. I'm loving it.
It's great. So it was more of a like big e-ticket dark ride screen thing with Alien, and then it was more of a like psychological thriller attraction on the scale.
I don't know where on earth I got the idea that it was another like laser shoot ride. I have no idea.
There might be another one too, because there's that Fox. There was, I think you had mentioned in your video, there was the Fox park that was built in Malaysia, but then they called it Genting Skyworld and stuff.
Genting Skyworld. And by the way, like, I didn't even talk about the fact that that place looks like a Bond villain's secret village.
Yes.
Like, it is literally it's like a hotel and theme park built like on top of a mountain, like Everest. It is insane what is going on over there, guys. It's insane. Okay, so it was cool. It was like more of like an e-ticket dark ride immersive thing. So cool. And you're gonna be like, I think it's so interesting. I mentioned it in the video that like James Cameron gave everyone that ever worked on Alien in the future like a location that is identifiable with a terraforming colony, because Alien is otherwise it's just in spaceships, you know. So like everyone who makes an Alien attraction leans into James Cameron's terraforming colony because it's the only thing to do. It's the only thing he can do. But it's so iconic. That stuff was so cool. How, out of curiosity, you work on these things, how upsetting, how gutting is it for these things to die? Like these things that you are excited about to kind of go away in this career that you've chosen. I feel like this happens often. What happens to you on the other side of that as a creator?
You know, like, not to get dark for a second, but like it's very sad.
Because on a very special episode of Fun.
Right, fun is sad. No, it's sad, like, in the sense of, it depends on the companies, obviously. So like in this case, like the Fox Park got canned, and like a lot of us, myself included, got laid off from our job, kind of thing. So like the company was starting to collapse on itself, because that was the big project. It wasn't going to go forward. So we had to lose people. And so like, not only is it a bummer that you lose your job, but you also lose the project that you've worked on like every day for, you know, in those projects specifically, like Disney and Universal have these big teams. These smaller, you know, third-party themed entertainment companies that build a lot of the other stuff that's in the industry are such small groups. Like, they're like, you know, maybe 40 people in that team. So you get like it becomes really close. So like when you work on stuff, everybody's passionate about it, and then you're like, all right, we're gonna make the coolest thing. And then it starts to die, and you're like, oh, shoot. Well, you know, that becomes a bummer. And thankfully, like, you know, we all remain friends, and we all, a lot of the time, just go work at the next company together. But in terms of the actual project ending, it's always a bummer, because like something like that Alien attraction was one that I was like, this thing is going to be nuts. Like, it's going to be so cool if we can get it done. That park, we had designed a land on the very family-friendly show of Sons of Anarchy, which is like insane for the Middle East, but like, cool, let's like take a stab at it. And what does our version of a Simpsons land look like? Cool. But, you know, because that stuff doesn't happen.
That's so interesting you say that. When you're designing for Dubai or Malaysia or any of these places, I often say that you know, Tokyo Disneyland as a whole is commodified Americanism. It is like on purpose. On purpose. It's like our Chinese food in a weird way. It is like this like revered thing that's very much in a bubble, and it is its own parodied type of culture that is like a thing. It's like eating Oreo. It's like their section with Oreos and Reese's peanut butter cups and stuff. It's like the America section. Do you like you just mentioned Sons of Anarchy, not remotely a family park friendly franchise, but yet to them is to other countries, when you're designing for them, are you designing like with like essentially doing it like the best way I can describe it is a drag version of it, like it's just campy, overly done, sort of almost bordering cringe, because it just you just have to make everything so like what is that? Is that tangible? Is that a tangible thing when you're designing for that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, we definitely like it. The Middle East specifically is one that we have more like cultural restrictions that we have to be aware of like, you know, where people can go, where certain people can go, where like certain people can do certain things, and on a. So we have like there's almost like a learning experience of like, if there's a bar that like the bar can't be seen by children, so that has to be obscured in a certain, like there's different like cultural and like political rules that go around things that you have to be aware of. But then in terms of like actually usually the fun side of things of of the attractions. For Sons of Anarchy, we just distilled it down to like it's motorcycles in the desert, and that's kind of where it came down to. And it was like we're not really going to have the characters around necessarily.
Yes.
But we'll call things by their IP name.
Okay, that's so great. I remember. Okay, that validates me so much because I remember being in Singapore at Universal Singapore when they had just opened up Battlestar Galactica, their dueling coaster, and like I walked through there, I was like, "What is this? Like, what is going on here?" Because it wasn't even recognizable almost to like, and they had all the actors come back, but they had them read like if you told ChatGPT, all right, make Battlestar Galactica for like a first grade reading level, and so like these actors are painfully reading these like very like drawn out like it's so thank you for like I've been carrying that for years wondering what was happening to me, and now I understand.
It's sometimes as basic as like, well, we got to distill it down and we've got like the rights to the actors, so I guess we'll use them in there, but it like doesn't fully mesh properly. But you do the best you can.
Okay. I like this. This leads me to my next big thing that I want to talk to you about, because you have a lot of stuff that you have designed that has died or has become very successful, but a completely different kind of like angle about designing is merch design, because merch design, man, it comes and goes like that. It's either successful, it's not successful, it's popular, people love it, they don't, it's in the clearance bin at the Disney outlet store in a month, or it's not, so you worked on Disney Parks merch. What was that like?
It was very fun. It was the most insane little opportunity that we had. Again, at the company was called Rethink, where we worked on Fox Dubai, and we got to do some of the stuff there. And one of the guys that I worked with, who is an incredible designer and has done so much for the Disney Parks, blah blah blah. It's a whole nother episode almost. But he had a connection with merchandise. So we had this opportunity to like start doing some like small, like contracted things within our company of like, what could things start to look like? And then he would take those and go pitch those to the merchandise team within Disney. And so it was very fun to like take a little bit of a step back while we're working on the Fox park to be like, okay, we knew they were doing the Star Wars land, or they were at the time, I think it was like Seasons of the Force stuff out at Disneyland. So it was like, what kind of just like generic-y Star Wars things could we start to come up with? I think we did some stuff for a minute on Avatar that I don't think any of our stuff really ever made it in there, but it was fun to be able to play in that, like, it's a whole nother world of design that, like, where there's health and safety stuff you have to think about, if there's food involved, and it, like, is it still in story, but then is it practical? And then does anybody want to buy this thing? Like, now popcorn buckets have gotten insane, and like they're almost not really popcorn buckets at this point, but yeah, you get to find ways to make like a food vehicle.
No, they stop selling it to you with popcorn in it. That's the biggest tell. That's the biggest tell. If you buy it now and they don't put the thing in it, you're lying to yourself, and you have a problem. You have a problem, and you probably don't have any storage space left in your home either. So it's time to really look at yourself in the mirror. I've just been watching too many Hoarder episodes. I'm sorry. They just have compilations on YouTube now, and I have YouTube Premium, so I got no commercials, baby. So I can just marathon a block of Hoarders like you wouldn't believe. So
are you saying you've been hoarding Hoarders episodes?
I've been hoarding Hoarders episodes. It is. I've moved on from Antiques Roadshow episodes. I have a theory about this, and Nathan and I were talking about it, but why do you think it's so hard to sell Pandora merch?
The hardest thing in the world.
Why do you think no one cares?
I think it.
I have a theory, but I want to know what you think.
My only thought kind of goes back to a little bit what we talked about at the beginning of like the intellectual property lands and stuff. And it was, I think, like, people they enjoy, for the majority of people, I think they enjoy the look and feel of the Avatar movies. They're like, I know it. I like going and watching it when they come out once every 10 years or whatever, and we go and see it. And then I'm at the park, and that's the new thing, especially at Animal Kingdom, to go do. So I will make sure I go see it. You get in there, it's beautiful. But I think people still, like, the rides are cool. It resonates with people, like, on an emotional level for some people when you get off a Flight of Passage. But I still don't know if, like, when you walk off that thing, you're like, but now I need to buy a Navi spear. Like, I just don't know if that stuff resonates with the majority of people. And they go like, wow, that was an amazing time. I got, like, to do a really cool ride. It looks beautiful. but I don't think like that merch just is like as impactful to people as like going to Harry Potter and buying a wand or Star Wars and a lightsaber and stuff like that.
Yeah, Avatar is weirdly like it's an IP that feels generic in that way, which is why it's world renowned. Honestly, I mean, everyone went and saw it because it's sort of a basic story in a world we can understand. But it's kind of like selling, I don't know, cowboy hats in Frontierland. It's like it's like fun space jungle, and you know, there's nothing like a lightsaber or anything that like connects you to it.
Yeah. The Banshees got like close because I think people were like, "This is actually a really cool piece of merchandise." But outside of that, I don't think I've ever bought anything at the land. I've just been like, "This is really pretty. I enjoyed my time here." Off to Kilimanjaro safaris.
All right, here's my my theory. Okay, is that Harry Potter and even Star Wars in some way is like almost like a very capitalistic hellhole in terms of like the world that it exists in, and you can acquire through wealth and power. You know what I mean? And so you going to Harry Potter world and getting a wand is literally buying the first thing Harry Potter does is get money in the movies. You know what I mean? Magical. First magical thing he does is he gets cash. You know, he visits the wizard ATM and then he cashes out, baby. You know, and Star Wars is bizarrely kind of the same thing. You know what I mean? With like the traders. Oh, I'm scavenging, I'm earning, I got to get my bread or whatever. But Pandora and Pandora, everything is earned. Like you have to earn everything. And how do you translate earning your Banshee into a cash exchange? It's a very interesting sort of thing that like doesn't work. And so I would argue that if they got rid of the merch shop entirely and replaced it with like the equivalent of like old timey photos, like if they had like things that would put you into the world that you could walk away with that memory, like buying a butterbeer or a wand or anything like that. If you could like be in a photo op that like has all the flowers that like disappear or reappear or whatever, you know, like I or meet a Navi or whatever. Like I honestly think that they would profit a great deal more than, because by inherently nothing about Pandora and Avatar is about buying things. You know what I mean? It's literally the enemy of the narrative, you know?
Yeah. No, I think that's probably right on nailing it on the head there. Like, there's just nothing that I walk away.
I would drop this mic, but it has an arm.
But boom. No further comments. I think you got that. You have professored.
Well, I just think that Disney really needs to think about. I think that any theme park. This sounds so crazy to say. I think any immersive place, and Meow Wolf does it, and I want to talk about. We'll talk about it, but is having commercialism, late stage capitalism as part of the narrative is important for us to feel seen. It's the only thing we know how to do is to earn money through pain and then give it to someone to feel good. You know, it's the only thing we know how to do. My God, this is the most depressing episode I've ever made. And so if your theme park doesn't have that in some way, I mean, like they literally did it to dinosaurs, guys. They made a dinosaur carnival. They made a dinosaur scam artists, you know, like, I mean, like they if you want a thing that's going to last for a while and want people to involve themselves in it, a big part of that is like, it's just the society we live in. You know what I mean? It's just the society we live in. You got to lean into it, baby. Lean in.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. That's all I have to say. Okay. So you went to work for ThinkWell next?
I did. Yeah.
Nice. How do you like this? I just got your resume and I'm just reading it.
No, you're good. I was
you
worked
LinkedIn,
baby. Got it all updated.
You worked on the U.S. Marshals Museum. So what was it like meeting Tommy Lee Jones?
I know, right? it was a delightful time. No, the U.S. Marshals Museum.
I guess Harrison Ford's also in that movie, isn't he? But he's not.
He's a doctor. No. If he was doing Chicago Surgeons Museum, who have been accused of murder, he could meet Harrison Ford from that movie.
But I'm saying Harrison Ford was in the movie, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But we don't think of Harrison Ford when we think of U.S. Marshals. We think of Tommy Lee Jones.
No. Okay. Justin, I'm so
And this
sorry.
is-
We
also,
got
this is the
sidetracked here.
second-
I
this is the
must
second
fix
Tommy Lee
Dan on
Jones
his
vehicle
knowledge.
he worked
Fix him.
on. This is the second Tommy Lee Jones vehicle he worked on, because first he did Men in Black Coke
Right.
Station, and now
Right.
he's working at the U.S. Marshals Museum.
Yeah,
So Justin
you are
has deep ties.
You are slightly confused. The movie The Fugitive stars
The
Harrison
Fugitive,
Ford and Tommy Lee Jones,
Fugitive, the
who's pursuing him.
Fugitive.
It
I knew
was
that.
so popular that Tommy
Yeah.
Lee Jones went on to star in U.S. Marshals.
Oh, it's a Frasier situation. So it is all the same, but it's not.
Yes, and that
Okay.
starred Wesley Snipes and Robert Downey Jr.
Wesley a.k.a. Blade, baby.
I think it was Wesley Snipes.
All right, so what's
Yeah.
it like working? Because like, did you have like I don't know what is like imposter syndrome mixed with stolen valor? What's it like being like a theme park nerd? Be like, doop-de-doo, all right, I'm gonna make a U.S. Marshals thing. You know?
Well, thankfully, the best part.
I'm not trying to like. That's not shade. Like that's how I would
no.
feel. Like, oh, you hired the clown to come tell the story of police.
Well, it's museum. I mean, it's the difference of education versus entertainment
Right.
in many ways.
Exactly. Yeah. No. It like the cool thing was, after getting laid off from my the last job before that, the cool thing about that was getting to go work at a place like Thinkwell that they do incredible work, and their work spans theme parks, museums, touring shows, all of that stuff. So being able to go into a project like that, and that was one of my later projects at Thinkwell, actually. And the best part of that was that we have, or I had at the time, working there, like an incredible creative director team. Like they did all of the research for all of that stuff. And at the time I was
cool.
just a 3D modeler that was helping design what the spaces looked like. And so they would come to and be like, cool, we have this area you're going to like, they figured out the whole museum basically, and then my job was to take different sections of it and actually figure out what the space starts to look like.
Cool.
So thankfully, there are
I
people
retract
far...
all my shade I threw. So you really
you're
did.
good.
Justin's job was to yassify history. That was his job.
Yeah, there you go.
Was
So
to
you-
make it as interesting as possible to visually for people so they can be interested to learn about the
I
US
got you. So,
Marshals.
like, and I was going to make the same kind of joke with the NFL experience, is that, like,
Yeah.
but at this point, you're saying your boss is kind of coming with a vision board, and you're like, okay, I know what everything is. Now I just have to make it look good. I have to come in and work. You know what I mean? And make it. I have to sell it. I have to sell it.
Yeah. Exactly, and NFL experience was great. I'm a big baseball fan. I used to be a bigger football fan. Don't care as much about it, but at the time was a big football fan. So it was like my coming in. Most of my team knew nothing about the NFL or football or any of that stuff. So I was able
like
to
Taylor Swift fans. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
we
exactly.
all went through that last year as a nation.
So we were all able to like start to work on some stuff, and I was able to be like, okay, this is like some extra things that we can add into the designs that relate to the sport overall.
Is there a football fact that you remember still from your time working on it?
Oh gosh, I don't.
Nothing
actually.
stuck with you. Do you remember anything about the U.S. Marshals?
Another one that did not either. That's the thing is and I always growing up and like watching all of like the Disney specials and stuff, and then like getting into where YouTube became bigger, where we're getting interviews with like people at Imagineering or Universal or any of these places, and they're talking about their career, and they'd be like, yeah, I don't really remember that stuff, and I'd always be like, how the heck don't you remember any of these things? And then I got into it and was like, I don't remember half this stuff as well, and I think it's because just going like 1,000 miles an hour to get a project finished. A lot of the time we're just given like, this has to be a saloon and it's going to be part of the Marshals Museum, and the other stuff you don't even bother seeing what is happening in it. We just need you to design what it looks like. And so sometimes we get half of the puzzle along the way.
Dan,
I
think
see.
this kind of leads into a question we had later, but I think it's a good time to ask it, which is sort of about just culture's obsession with concept art and how
oh my gosh, yes.
Your end is going 1,000 miles per hour and creating stuff to like, we're just trying to figure this out. And then now there are 70-minute videos about one piece of art you made, both talking crap about what they think of it, and then also trying to analyze it.
I just want to say before Justin comments on that, because it's something near and dear. It's entirely management's fault of each individual company how concept art has been handled and and Just doesn't have to say that. I'll say it. Yeah, it's entirely the finance bros. It's these guys, and they all have different approaches. Universal and Disney, Six Flags, Fun Spot, whatever it is, they all have different approaches to how they handle their
crayon to create things. They're just like
Fun Spot. It's day 3 of COVID. Come on down. We're open. The licking poles ready for everybody. But we all hang on concept art, and we hang on it very differently and interestingly based off of the way that the companies have taught us have trained us with our expectations. So as someone who makes the concept art, will you tell me how you feel about the artist rendering only 3 little white lettered words in the corner of the picture, and like what that means to you and the greater scheme of how we all devour it? Like what's the deal, Justin?
Those 3 words are doing a whole lot of heavy lifting, and it's
most heavy lifting.
Yeah, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes I think it's completely unnecessary. Like I'm working on a project right now. Funny enough, on Friday we were talking about like doing a bird's eye piece of concept art and how we're going to go about it, because we are not fully ready. Maybe to like the park project is not fully designed yet, so we're trying to figure out a lot of that stuff. And so the process of like making a lot of concept art pieces nowadays, because it's a faster way to do it, is we build the stuff in a 3D model, whether it be, any of the big high powered 3D modeling programs. And then those models will get rendered out, they'll be textured, all that stuff, and look pretty. And then it will get painted over by somebody that's got, beautiful illustration background. But sometimes those models are directly lifted from an experience. So sometimes I'm trying to think of something that was like announced recently at like D23, like the concept art for like the Cars land. That's the close-up shots of like the vehicle that's going to go to Magic Kingdom. Those probably were more of shots that are like kind of rough gestural, like this is kind of the experience to sell that kind of moment. Whereas something, and it might not be fully based, I should say, on like a 3D model that is then getting painted because it's not an actual show scene that's fully designed yet, if this is making sense. And then when you take something like the Epic Universe like bird's eye, top down shot of the whole park, most likely that was a model that was built in some 3D program that was, plopped together once all the lands were designed and everything, and then they render out that shot and all the stuff is fully designed, and then someone's painting over that, and then that's what's actually really going to get built, basically. So I think there's always a level of how much, like, to what level is it to sell the idea, and then what is it that is actually like, this is what we're going to ultimately go get built. I stand in the lane a little bit of like, I think early on a lot of companies go too deep into like, we have to show exactly what we're going to build. This has to look exactly like the AT-AT room in Rise of the Resistance, because that's what we're going to sell and what we're going to ultimately build. And I think like it's more interesting to show the stuff that was like when they first announced, I'll use Galaxy's Edge as the example of like that really big, painterly looking stuff. That stuff was all done by Lucasfilm, and those guys don't build theme parks. They build stuff that goes into, the computer and then green screen, or blue screen, whatever it is, onto stuff where they're just thinking like this would be, cool visual stuff. And then I think as you get later into a project, that's when you start to distill down, okay, what are we actually going to make? And then those pieces of concept art later on should be a little bit more definitive to what is going there. So I think like it's the thing of early on when something gets announced and that's the art we're first showing, that probably should just be the artist concept only kind of thing. Like that's all it is. This is pre Blue Sky or pre concept. We're still figuring out a lot of the stuff, and then as we get a little bit later on, when we are really starting to sell the project because we got shovels in the ground, then we can release art that's like, this is exactly what we're going to do now.
Now I have to ask though, isn't there something we could do more as a company with visual cues in terms of stuff that we hand to audiences? Like, I don't know, put the concept art on something that looks like blueprint, like a blueprint with like the frame around it. Like, is there, and I guess as someone who makes concept art, is there a way that you could teach me, or at least give me a trick or two, that when I'm looking at concept art, I can kind of decipher, oh, this is something that someone's already modeled and it's on its way, versus something that, oh, this is just someone's just thinking. Like, are there any ways to kind of tell the difference between those two?
I think like what we as an industry probably could do is not be so definitive. Like going back to that Lucasfilm art that was done for Galaxy's Edge, it's very painterly. Like you can see almost the digital brushstrokes of how, you know, the facades were starting to come together, or the creatures were looking. And to me, that still feels like we're still thinking about that stuff. We're still trying to figure those things out, versus, you know, the very definitive, like, this is exactly what it's going to look like. It looks like what I'm going to ultimately go and experience when it's built.
I gotcha. So when I'm seeing like concept art that's full of like, for instance, I've seen there's a piece of concept art out there that you're in, like it has like a photoshopped image of you with like, that was clearly painted over, versus something that is like a Renaissance masterclass of like, it's just art watercolor strokes. You can see the art and like how it's like been like, you know, made and put together. Like if you look at the art and kind of look at the story of the art, you can maybe see that the intention of the art as and that it's truly conceptual versus something that's really locked in.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the time, like pieces like this, which was done, my best friend Chris Bradley, incredible concept artist, did this piece. And a lot of the time, these pieces, he works with some of the big guys all the time. Hence, this piece being one of them for Epic. But the one of the big things is, not only are we trying to sell it to an audience, a lot of the time, like the concept art we're making, we're having to sell to like either a client or the executives themselves. And like, sorry, executives, not always the most creative people. Like, and so you have to be so handholdy with them, where it's like, no, this is exactly what it's going to look like, because they also want to see that art and then see a breakdown of like material costs. And like, they're not they don't always even let it have time to breathe of like, how cool would this be? They're like, okay, that's cool. How much is it going to cost? And how many people are we getting through there? And how much is, you know, this and that?
I don't mean to read between the lines, but what I'm kind of hearing here is that like, as an institution, we see from Disney a lot of concept art way sooner than anyone would, because that pipeline that's literally how it works. It's you're in this creative company full of artists making movie, like just like Walt did back in the day. He went to his cartoonist to be like, all right, give me all these visuals so we can start to inspire things, versus like Universal that's working with a more tight timeline, more tight budget, more tight this or that. When we, the audience, get introduced to the things, we are like also very much like they have a staff of trained concept artists that are designing these things that have to be spot on. So when they go to the management okays them, and then they're presented to the public, and that's what's made. And it's not sort of like this wishy-washy creative process like Disney might go through. We're doing big artful things and that we will announce and get people excited about. Universal's like grinding along, and like with like a team that's like, the whole job is just make this concept art as tight as possible, because it's what's going to get made.
Yeah, and sometimes like we had stuff that was made for certain projects along the way, that were pieces of concept art for stuff that is ultimately going to get built that looks wildly different than what is actually going to get made.
Yeah.
And so it definitely depends on the project or even company to company. But yeah, there definitely are places more often than not that like the design is done. We don't have that moment of like, you see. I'll keep using like old Disney documentary stuff, but like even Imagineering Story, I'll use that because I enjoy watching it, but it's funny to see it from a different perspective of like, they'll be like, well, we spent all this time coming up with these ideas, or we went to, you know, the Aspen retreat for DCA and we thought it through for weeks and weeks and weeks. And it's like, the reality is nowadays that doesn't happen. It's like you have, for most companies, I should say, Disney still might be an exception, but the reality is that we have like a very small amount of time, and like, we're designing something on the fly, and it has to be already going in that direction that we're comfortable with ultimately making, unless we have to make a hard right turn to completely pivot and change the direction. But yeah, nowadays, because of we're building a 3D model that's going to be used to build the construction drawings, which is also going to inform the concept art, which is going to also show operations, and all of this stuff is being done at the exact same time. So it's kind of this very quick, but like it has to be the direct process, basically.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, that really enlightens me in a big way about how that concept art sort of rolls out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nuts. It's fascinating. Just the whole process, and it's insane at the same time. I look back and I go like, how did we do all of this?
Have fun at soccer, honey. Sorry, my kid's off to her Sunday soccer.
Oh, you're good.
Okay. So, we talked about concept art early, and that's okay because it goes into this next big chunk of you know, like you were at Universal Creative, the show set designer for creative show quality. What a mouthful. I have to ask first and foremost, what in God's name is show quality?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy you asked. I will talk about it forever, but I'll make it quick. It is the basically the group of people, in our case, at the time, it was a team of 3 people that took care of the entire park. So every day when you go into any theme park, every big park has a group that's in charge of, like, we want to make sure that all the animatronics are working. We want to make sure that everything looks like the paint isn't chipping, or like the plants look pretty, or like if there's any small maintenance that has to be done. Show quality's responsibility is to make sure the park looks as good as it does every day for every guest that comes through the door.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I have an example of Krusty's tongue. Can you tell me about Krusty's tongue?
Yeah, so Krusty was this is a great example, because show quality is by no means the most glamorous job, because they are really, Disney has a whole group, and they are the unsung heroes of trying to keep, let alone down in Orlando, 4 parks going, just to us having a small team to do 1 park at Universal Hollywood. But for Krusty's tongue is a great example of really, like, the tongue was looking faded. It's got that, like, oh gosh, that's like soft play, like foamy texture you see on like kids' playgrounds and stuff. So it has that squishy feeling to it. So after a while, it starts to fade. It starts to kind of get torn up from like millions of people walking on it throughout the day. And so we had to go through the process of replacing it. But because it's an intellectual property, we had to get in contact with the people over at Fox Gracie and the Simpsons people. We had to go back through documentation from when the land was originally made, because there's a specific color, like, grouping that makes the color that was approved for the Krusty tongue and all that stuff. So it like goes through not only, we got to make it look pretty, but we have to make sure that like our partners that are either external or internal to the studio are happy with that stuff. We did stuff, I hope I'm not jumping too far ahead, but we did stuff. One of my projects was the Dark Arts show at Hogwarts Castle nighttime show.
Yeah.
And throughout that process, we had to have, Warner Brothers has a team for the Wizarding World property, and they would come through and they would want to make sure, cool, like this looks like what, any of the new special effects we were adding in the land, they had to blend in. They have to feel like they're a part of the Wizarding World in Hogsmeade. So really our role was to make sure that if anything was being added that was brand new to the park, that it adhered to the IP holder, but also aesthetically looked good in the lands. And that went for everything, and so to add new stuff, make sure it fit in, but also maintain things. It's a heavy lift of a project.
Okay. Now I know what department was so mad at Tom Corliss when he had that list going of everything wrong at Walt Disney World.
It was probably
I just learned what department.
And truthfully, like I'm one of those people where like going through the park, like after having that job now, that's all I see is like, oh gosh, like that thing is off, and like the majority of people don't care. They're buying popcorn and riding to their next ride. But like the artist side of me is like, oh, I want this to feel like the it's got to be perfect. It's a piece of art. But yeah, it's a very important part of the whole experience, because you want to, if people are paying $200 to get in the door, you got to give them a good show.
Justin, yeah. I'm sure it varies. So I'm sure tongues are different than animatronics for sure. But
sure,
like, give our audience I guess when you, like, for example, when I see something that's busted at a theme park, I'm like, gah. And because you're an annual pass holder, I would get maybe more frustrated than a normal human being because I'm there more frequently to it. Yeah. On the back end, what's the understanding of this is how long we can let this thing go as we figure it out until it becomes an awareness of the general population that this thing looks old and busted. I'm sure that's a lot longer process than the AP holder, but now that AP holders all have social media, what's that effect on show quality?
That's a great question. It's tough to give it like a direct timeline of things, because truthfully, it came down to like, one of my things I would do throughout the day is like the week would go by, I was working on a bunch of projects, but I would spend my Friday, like last 2 hours of work, just walking the park. I'd go on a ride or two to just see what was working. And then we would have a form online, basically through our internal stuff, that we could send requests to our maintenance teams of like, these are things that maybe need to be painted or fixed. And truthfully, it came down to like the pecking order of who they had and what time they could spare to get certain things fixed. I use the example of like in the old story used to be that like in Pirates of the Caribbean, the old auctioneer scene, if the auctioneer was not working, there was always the lore that like that ride was shut down. The rule was that ride doesn't work if that animatronic doesn't go, because that's like the big pivotal iconic piece of the attraction. That was kind of Disney's rule for a while. And so when we were working on different attractions, Jurassic World was one, we started to have similar conversations of like, well, if a dinosaur breaks, what's the kind of rule for that? And like there's conversations that have, that go back and forth. Operations tends to lean sometimes, like I'll use that as the example, but like they'll do, people are here, they'll see the dinosaur. If it doesn't fully work, okay, we'll get it fixed. But ultimately we don't want to shut down a ride because that, kills our capacity, or, people still want the thrill of the drop. So we'll give them as good of a show as they can, but they get the thrill. We get the people through another attraction. So there's a little bit of that back and forth of like, how much can we take away from the show before it's not what we are promising when you walk through the door, versus,
Wow.
how much, time and manpower do we have to actually get those things fixed?
Now, I imagine that also there has to be different levels of skill sets and availability with the maintenance teams. Like when it comes to, this needs to be repainted versus, one of the walls in the finale of Figment doesn't activate anymore. Like I have to imagine, and as someone with an AP, and Nathan hit the nail on the head, that I'm going to the park 5, 6, 7 times a year to ride this ride versus someone who's once every 2 years, completely different. But still, like, what if something big breaks? I imagine like you have to, even if you are the controller of the IP like Figment, you have to find a guy to fix it. Like you can't just go to the Yellow Pages for that. Like there has to be the right guy.
Yeah, and thankfully, like with Universal, we had a really large and talented team of people that did a lot of things, but at the same time, it's a large park that has a lot of things that are going on. And sometimes it comes down to not even the availability of the people, but how much time will it take to fix something versus like, how do you fix something? So like if, I'll keep using Jurassic, for example, like, that big Indominus Rex is, easy to get to. But if it's going to take some big parts to fix, that might mean that, a ride has to shut down. And, then again, it kills capacity for the park. And now people that were planning on coming for their every 2-year trip, now the ride's closed for them. So it becomes a little bit of a, like, how far can we push it before it really needs to get fixed? And it's that back and forth of like, we want it to be the best possible experience and we don't want anything to be broken. But at the same time, we'd rather enough of it be going than not at all.
Now there's this big ride in like Europe with a whale that they're about to fix.
Yes.
With the ride not going down. They're going to maintenance the ride I guess not in full view, but like it's going to keep going. I have always been fascinated by that in a way. Like I would very much like to see work done on rides that I go on as a theme park, but I believe that I'm maybe not a representation of the general audience. But at the same time, theme parks have become very meta in the way that we view the world. And so seeing repair work done on an attraction doesn't necessarily, especially a vintage attraction that's restoration, like they could do all the work on Spaceship Earth. I would actually encourage them to remodel Spaceship Earth while I'm on it. Like I do not care. I do not care that right. If someone's hanging, if like 7 people are redressing like the cool scientist lady, cool. I would love that. So what? How much chaos must that be to work on a ride that's still with people on it?
I saw that as well. That I'm fascinated to see that process, and I hope people over there are like documenting that, because that's insane. To do even, not having done it on a ride itself, but like doing the dark art stuff. We were adding special effects that were we were adding like a fire cannon and mist effects and stuff into that land. And while not to the same level, like we were in there at 4 a.m. every day, doing a couple hours of work, and it had to look good for 10 a.m. Park open, and like the turnaround to be able to be like, we're going to do all this work, there's trucks in here, we're welding stuff, we're bringing in big machinery, and then in a matter of 45 minutes it's all cleaned up and we've hosed everything down and covered things up and it looks perfect, is pretty, it's like like a magic trick, really. So to do it on a ride where they're going to fix a giant animatronic is insane, and I commend them for that. But I agree. Yeah, I think there's ways that we could fix stuff. Yeah, exactly. We should fix more stuff so we don't have to have full big downtimes.
Just let me ask you a question about Jurassic World, because this kind of connects with what we were talking about deciding when things go back up and what, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm fuzzy on the history here. But if I remember right, when that ride reopened as World, the initial Indominus Rex head wasn't in the ride yet. And that came a little bit later. Is that part of that process too, of thinking like, okay, this is sort of we're soft, but I don't really believe in soft openings anymore because the internet makes everything a hard opening.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, when you're opening something like that, what is your thought process in that same manner of, well, this effect isn't working yet, but it doesn't take that much away from the story because there's enough new that's going to get gathered? Like, what are those decisions like?
Yeah, thankfully, those are always above my pay grade most of the time. That comes down to like an ops thing or like the executives in charge of whatever creative departments are there. But I tend to find that like watching them go around a lot of those things, whether it be something like a Jurassic or any of those other projects, it comes down to like, not to rehash stuff, but it's, we need this ride open. And, if we've already done marketing for, whatever it is, we got to get this thing up and going. There becomes a point, like even seeing, over at Haunted Mansion right now out here at Disneyland, like the ride is open, but the queue is, a full construction zone.
All got it up.
Yeah, and so it was kind of like, we've got enough of a path up that we can get people on it safely, and we can, we did enough work behind the scenes inside the attraction. And so it becomes that like, well, we need to get these things, up and running for, either the summertime rush or the holiday crowds in the wintertime. I think that's a lot, really what dictates a lot of it is like, can we obviously safely open it, and is it done to where we're happy with it, and then we can eventually go in later and rejudge some stuff to make things what we intentionally planned for them to be.
Do you feel like operations over the last, I don't know, decade, the time frame between creation and implementation of full operation is smaller than it used to be? Or is it just something that we're more aware of? Like, people are, I hear this sort of nostalgia bait where people are like, oh, when they opened Carousel of Progress, it worked all the time, and now and then they go to Galaxy's Edge and it's down for 2 months basically, and they're like, this would never have happened if Walt was alive, which is not true. Is it just our awareness of that stuff more, or do you feel like there is less time than there used to be to implement a full new ride better, or like accurately?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, I think we're definitely more aware of things. We've got everybody's in the parks, filming or taking pictures, and given, Bio Reconstruct's renting a helicopter and flying over construction sites every week. And
Bio Reconstruct is a helicopter. He's one of those characters from Planes, the Cars spin-off movie.
And bless him for doing that, because I love getting those updates every week or whenever he puts them out. But I think it depends again a little bit on the project. Galaxy's Edge took like 3 years of construction almost or so to get that up and running, and like makes sense. That thing is massive. But I do think at times projects need more time, and we are rushing them a little bit too much to get them open. And I think that ultimately hinders things, because while, to your point of like, there's no real soft opening anymore. That's 100% it, because like once it opens, that's the people's first impression. If it's not fully done, then, pictures are already up online I remember I went into Super Nintendo World out here the first day of soft opening, and there were a bunch of people in there taking pictures and throwing stuff up on the internet of like, there's still painter's tape on this wall. And it's like, well, yeah, like the sign out front says it's a technical rehearsal. We are still working on stuff. But people don't care about that. It's like, if I can get in there, then it's got to be done. And almost to that point, unfortunately, I'm like, get rid of soft openings. Just open it when it's done. Like, don't show it off to the general public. Maybe show it to internal team members, cast members, operations people, and have your test runs done through that. But I've started to lean into like, just give it as much time as you can to make sure it's as close to as done as possible before you start letting people in, because you only get one opening.
I agree. And also, if you're going to build the land, build all the rides and then open it. Don't, build a ride and then be like, we'll get to it. We're working on it, baby. You don't think we got things going on?
It's a weird, I think that, that's a whole nother discussion of Galaxy's Edge and its, flaws and achievements and stuff. But I think, that's one of those issues. If it's not all open when it's there, you've told people the land is there, it better be done, and to kind of give them a false promise there, it skews expectations, and then it starts, it gives people ideas of how things should be done in the future, and on and on and on. And then we start getting issues like that where we, whether it be from concept art of people, misunderstanding that to all the way to actual opening. I think we lose the narrative a little bit of what's actually being done and what should be done.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We sure do.
Yeah.
We sure do. I have to ask you about Meow Wolf, specifically the Convergence station.
Sure.
Are you okay? Are you well? Are you what happened to you, and do you need to talk?
Before that, there might be people who are listening or watching that have no idea what Meow Wolf or Convergence Station is.
Yeah. We have to explain.
Before
I'm
you
just checking in on my friend Justin here because I have seen some things that I'm not sure he's okay. So, Justin, can you explain to us what the Convergence Station is?
Oh my gosh, yes. I'll say this too. I feel like I have a caveat for everything. I struggle to tell people what it is, even to this day. But Meow Wolf, and in a general sense, is a artist collective based out of New Mexico that started from building small pop-up is maybe the right word, but it's in that style, art exhibits in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And over time they built some more and more things. They got some funding from George R.R. Martin, who lives in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They built their first and probably one of the most famous ones, House of Eternal Return. And I'll leave the rest of the history. If you anybody wants to go see it, go watch Meow Wolf Origin Story it's on a bunch of the streaming platforms, and it gives the full rundown of how it started to them opening their first full permanent experience that's still operational in New Mexico. But Convergence Station, is based in Denver, Colorado. It's right next to the Denver Broncos football stadium. It's in this newer, up and coming, revitalization project of an area of Denver. And so we are this big art experience. The story of the experience, without giving too much away, is it is a multiverse, trans-dimensional, transit station that will take you to the outer reaches of the multiverse, more or less. So you go in and you're inside of a transit station. It's a very futuristic looking airport kind of style experience. You board a people mover. It's an elevator, and it takes you to one of many different planets, basically. And inside our very large 5-story building, there are four main ones, I should say, themed planets, basically, where you go to. There's a city street that's inspired by Blade Runner style kind of aesthetics. There's a catacombs, as we call it, where it was beneath the city streets, where you could explore all these different realms. There's a swamp area. I don't remember all their technical names. That is this massive. That last picture that you had shown is this massive 3-story swamp organism planet kind of thing. And then there's a ice planet that is cold and dreary at the same time. And the overall story is that you've entered this transit station, and before you board your people mover, there is a plaque that is giving a little bit of a hint that something had happened. There's a woman named Pam. She has gone missing, or she might be dead. One of the things, TBD, you're going to go find out. And there's a whole story that takes place throughout all of the different worlds that you can interact and play with to uncover the story. So there's a story element to the whole thing, but then also the thing is jam-packed with an insane amount of art and experiential stuff that most people don't even get to the story because there's just so much to see inside that space.
So as you even begin to undertake a project such as the Convergence Station, which even just based on your description, it's more than obvious that, it is the passion project of many artists.
Yeah.
What do you even begin to do to find the people to fill that space? And what do you ask of them?
Yeah, great question. That project story, when I came on that project, it had been about a year in very soft development of like, they had started to develop what a story kind of was going to be, and the overall structure of the building was going up. And they had no idea what like the layout entirely was going to be, what things visually were going to start looking like, and on. So filling the space becomes a mix of using the people that are internal to the Meow Wolf company like proper. There was a team of about 400 people at the time, and then part of Meow Wolf's thing is whenever they go into a new market, so in this case Denver, they put out a call for artists to exhibit inside of the experience. And in that case, we were looking for people. We actually told them nothing about what was going on in there. We just put out a thing of Meow Wolf's coming to Denver. If you are an artist that wants to exhibit, submit your thing, cost it out, give us some renderings, and do the whole thing. And then we went through and just picked people. And then we knew where we were interested in placing them within the story. We contacted them. Cool, you've been selected to be a part of Meow Wolf Denver, blah, blah, blah. And then we had a day, I remember specifically, where we took them through, we went up to Denver, did a whole big presentation of concept art, fly-through models, the whole thing. And we explained, this is what we're building, and you're going to be inside of one of these spaces, basically.
Wow. When I go there as a consumer of themed entertainment, is there is it like a museum? Because I've never been, I apologize. Yeah. Is it like a museum? Because I refuse to go to Colorado. Is it like a museum in that there are like placards and like you can tell what artists have contributed, or is it truly seamless and you have to do your own research?
Yeah, this again has a small caveat. There's one space on that City Street experience that is a city museum. So there's we have artists that come in and exhibit stuff that are not permanent to the exhibit, and those have placards. Everything else is like going into a themed entertainment experience. There's nothing in there that tells you who did what specifically, I should say. But yeah, you go through and it's one straight narrative. One thing that I really appreciate that Meow Wolf does, while not perfect, they're doing it better than most places are. You can go in. I know Omega Mart has a larger example on their wall, but on ours, there's a QR code you can scan, and it takes you to a website that has the credits of everybody that did anything on the project.
Whoa, I love that.
It's insane. And I go on there. There's a few Meow Wolf that you're missing from me. But otherwise, there's, for the most part, they do a really good job of like trying to be like, these are people that worked on this stuff, and this is what their role was. So that way we can actually give credit where credit's due. There's so many things in this industry that just go completely unnoticed. The people that get those windows on Main Street are very few and far between. And there's like millions of people that work on these things that don't get to be seen. So I appreciate that Meow Wolf does do that, because you don't get to necessarily like sign your work on these kinds of projects.
You certainly don't.
Being the art director for that whole project, there's a space that I was able to sign a little bit. I left my hard hat that has my name on it and stuff up on a like faux construction site. And that was the only time I've ever been able to like, oh, that's my stamp of like my thing here. But otherwise,
Did you glue it in place? Someone could just move it.
It is heavily zip tied down to a fake out of reach scaffolding piece. Yeah, I made sure that was not going anywhere. But yeah, no, it's great.
Before we get to the end of our podcast, I have to ask, what is your connection to the Honda Center? What are you doing at the Honda Center?
Well, I should say, even though we're going down my resume, it's a little out of date. I'm no longer at the Honda Center, but it's all good. What is going on at the Honda Center, though, I think is very important for people to take notice of.
Tell me.
We talked a little bit. I mentioned earlier about that third places kind of thing of how do we make
I'm
our
fascinated
world.
by. I'm weary of a secondary location, but Justin has opened me up to a third location.
A third one, yeah. And so I think what this project was, my time with Meow Wolf wrapped up, and I was looking for a new project, and my boss at the time reached out online and was like, we could work together, blah, 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 whole story. But basically what is going on at Honda Center, for those that don't know, Honda Center is about like a couple miles from Disneyland. They just had D23 panels there and everything. And basically it's the home of the Anaheim Ducks hockey team, and they're building out a city walk downtown Disney-esque experience around it. So a lot of sports arenas, baseball stadiums, all this stuff are building restaurants, shopping, dining, things for people to go do pre and post concerts, sporting events, or any functions that are going on at the facilities. And in this case, they're trying to make it actually a downtown for Orange County in Anaheim. There's not really a like real true destination location in that space. And so this is trying to become that. So bringing in local restaurants, different shopping experiences, and elevating it a little bit more like a city walk in downtown Disney, where these are things maybe you don't find in your local mall per se, but it's how do we take I'm going out with some friends and we're going to a downtown space and elevating it just a little bit and adding a lot of tech and, really unique features to it that make it stand out from just going to a normal shopping mall, basically. So yeah, for that role, it was very fun to
Do you walk in there and put a different like chip in your brain that's not theme parks anymore? Or are you truly like, okay, like I know how to make theme park flow. I know how like this works. I'm just going to apply it to the Honda Center.
Both, yeah. There was they brought me in knowing what my past was and experience and stuff. So there was a level of like we want the theme parky experiential stuff, but also we're not trying to be a theme park. So how can we make things like a interesting bar location? Is there like a speakeasy that we can add, and that becomes a little bit more thematic? But also where like different experiential moments that are not in your face themed things, and applying that kind of thought process to, how do you take a food court in a mall and make it a little bit more interesting? How do you do like things
What
like
is the food court's motivation?
Exactly.
What if a food court had a bank?
Exactly.
Thinking like Pixar.
No, yeah, you're right. Exactly that. How do there's a giant parking garage. How do you make that experience just not concrete and steel? Like it's those kinds of thoughts that we were putting into that to try to make a bit of a more
you paint the lines different colors. They don't have to be white or yellow, guys. You could have you have green lines, orange lines. Just give me different lines. I like different colored lines.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was a little bit different, but I think it's hopefully, I'm excited to see where that project's gone from here. But I think
me too. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, hopefully it becomes a little bit of a copy and paste that other places can use and use an inspiration to make their places a little less boring.
Now, not that you can say anything about it, but tell me how my Kotu, I hope I'm saying it right, is challenging you differently than all of the work you've done before.
Yeah. Myco 2 is another third-party kind of experiential company. They do stuff, or we do stuff. I guess I work there, so it's put on my PR cap for a minute. But we do a lot of like work within theme park design, but also live entertainment and experiential stuff. So if anybody has seen years ago, there was at South by Southwest the Westworld experience that happened. If you haven't, go take a look. It's incredible.
That was really cool.
Yeah, they were the minds behind much of that. So they do things like that, but they'll also work on full-fledged theme park experiences. So I'm kind of back in a company doing stuff that's right up my alley in the theme park world. Stuff
that you went to the college program for?
Exactly, stuff I went to the college program for. Exactly. So there's some very exciting stuff that we're working on, and I'm excited to show it off. Hopefully in the future.
I cannot wait to see when your NDAs expire.
Yes, exactly.
Talk to you in 15 years.
Once it opens, I could talk all about it.
That's great.
On every episode of Fun, we like to talk about what we're doing for fun, to round out the episode. Okay. And I want to share what I'm doing for fun because I, at a yard sale for $40, got the vintage Disney World monorail, and also in the same $40, the contemporary resort, in its entirety. It has some Christmas tinsel, so I know that it was a Christmas. I know it was a Christmas thing, and I'm hyped. I've never owned it, but I can't. I hear it's loud as the Dickens. But it's Dan, what I'm doing for fun right now.
You put on Twitter, "Should I buy this?" Which you later told me was just engagement bait because you had already bought it. Because I texted you and I was like,
"Don't expose me like this."
Like people. So that's how it works.
It's not engagement bait. I'm telling a story, man.
That's true.
I'm trying to engage in a parasocial relationship with my fans.
That sounds healthy. And what I thought was funny though is I texted you immediately and was like, if you don't buy that, you're going to buy it for me, because $40 for that is crazy. They don't know what they got.
He also sold me a beautiful Pinocchio Big Fig, but that'll be for another episode.
Yeah, I weirdly enough, I have some of those actually still, those monorail resort things. And my parents just sold their house, so I was going through stuff, and I sold a few of them on eBay, and they were far more. They went for far more than $40. So you got a steal with that.
Cha-ching!
Yeah,
that's amazing. Nathan, you something about hammers?
No, not hammers. I've been watching horror Hammer classics from the Hammer Productions company, who that's what I've been having fun doing, who back in the 50s through the mid 70s made a ton of like Dracula and Frankenstein and mummy movies and tons of other stuff too in Britain.
But it's like in a This Old House style. They all have hammers. I'm so confused about the hammers.
Hammer is the name of the company. Hammer Horror.
Oh,
Hammer's the name of the company, Dan. You
things.
silly goose. And they the good ones, because there's a lot of bad ones, and even they are in some of the bad ones, have Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. And you know, in Dracula, Christopher Lee's Dracula and Peter Cushing's Van Helsing, and then you go over to Frankenstein and Peter Cushing's Frankenstein and Christopher Lee's the monster, and it's just like this little crew that keeps showing up in different movies. But I'd like to highlight the one I'm having the most fun with, and is now going to be a Halloween tradition for me, which is Dracula AD 1972, which sees Dracula die in the olden times and get resurrected in Swing in London 1972.
Oh, it's Austin Powers Dracula.
Not kidding you. It's pretty much that, and it rules very hard. The thing is, the movie itself is sort of basic, but then you have this like wash of like people going, let's go see them birds, like the whole time, and you're like, this is the best. You know, all of a sudden, Peter Cushing, who is the great-great-grandson of his original character or whatever, is like fighting Christopher Lee to like disco music. And you're like, I could not want more out of life than what this is giving me right now. So yeah, Hammer movies in general. I'm about to start into the mummy ones, but Dracula 8 AD 1972 is what I'm having fun with right now.
Yeah.
Wow. I cannot wait to watch the YouTube trailer and read the Wikipedia.
Mm-hmm.
Justin, how about you, man?
That's a good question. Work is keeping me very busy, so I don't have too much time for too many fun things at the moment.
But you got married recently.
I did just get married recently. Yeah, that's been fun. We and I'm forever trying to find.
Thanks for the invite, bro. I love wedding cake. It's my fave.
Trying to get myself back to find a way to live in Italy for the rest of my life after going on a trip there afterwards. But really, I mentioned a little bit earlier, I am a big baseball fan, and today is the final day of the regular season. But my New York Mets are clinging on for dear life. So my life has been consumed by working on theme park stuff, but also just taking in as much baseball and sporting stuff as possible. I have a couple friends that from high school, actually, that every year we do a trip somewhere in the country to go to baseball stadiums. We're working on going to all 30 of them. I'm up to like 21, 22 at this point. So my spare time most of the time is just relaxing and also getting stressed out.
What do you gather from each stadium?
It's a random assortment of things. Sometimes it's a hat, a pin. If it's a really interesting piece of merch, I'll find something there. So you're saying there's
no consistency in your life. You're not like going out there getting like dirt.
No,
like
and I wish I did.
Turf,
I wish I did.
Baseball.
Yeah, this year I was like, well, I should start buying like a pin of each stadium. And now I'm like, I have 3 pins out of 20 some odd stadiums I've already been to. So I'm way behind at this point.
You can get the rest online. You've been there already.
I'm doing great.
Exactly.
You're doing great.
I should have thought about this a long time ago. But yeah, that's really my side hobby is theme park design stuff, which is exhausting. But yeah, is watching a lot of baseball.
Amazing. Well, It sounds like fun. Baseball's fun. America loves baseball.
It sure does.
No one, I guess a lot of Asian countries like baseball too.
Yeah, they do.
So we have it's growing. We're getting it out there.
It is.
Did we invent it?
Yes. Kind of. Yes.
Nice.
Sort of. Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice to see
pizza and French fries.
Yeah, it's nice to see American culture finally get a win and be popular around the world. Yeah. Cool.
Who's your favorite baseball mascot?
Oh, favorite mascot. Oh, it's Dinger. He's the Colorado Rockies mascot.
Dinger's a good one.
He's great. He has, if you've not seen too, his whole like reveal as a mascot is insane. Like the whole shtick was when they were building the stadium that they found dinosaur bones. And so like they made a giant fake egg that he popped out of to reveal the It's insane. It's nuts. And that's that like side of baseball stuff that I find there's a little bit of a crossover with themed entertainment, but it's incredible.
People love mascots coming out of eggs. It's happened a lot.
Oh, I can only imagine. Yeah.
Furbies.
Oh,
the Colorado Ducks, Oregon Ducks.
Yeah.
They had the Nike mascot come out of an egg.
No way. Yeah.
The gobbledygooker at the WWE came out of an egg. The turkey-based mascot, the anonymous wrestling turkey that would come out and beat the crap out of people. Got a lot of love. I gotta love an egg. Well, speaking of eggs, this has been great. I've had a great time. Thanks for coming to my podcast, Justin. Where do you want people to look at you?
Oh, sure. You can find me on Twitter at Justin_Martin23.
Do you want people to go to Twitter though, Justin? Is that what you're saying? You think that's good for people?
Don't go to that hellhole.
Justin, Twitter. Is there anywhere else?
You have to convince. You've got to help me convince Dan. I think we can get all of Dis Twitter to move to Blue Sky. But he won't.
Yeah,
he's too. He loves his. He's got that like, little fix.
For what?
And he's like, I can't.
I don't have a fix. I don't have a fix. I just know that it's just not realistic. No one's going to do it.
I have like every time there was a new platform that kind of started, I like got a profile for it and then never could fully make the switch yet. So
you could change the URL of X to Blue Sky and people would still be putting twitter.com into the URL.
Yeah. It won't ever change, unfortunately, until it just collapses upon all of us.
Yeah, we're all dying slowly.
Yeah,
thanks for listening.
Very slowly.
It's been great, Justin. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. It's been great.
This has been a production of 710 Media.